Now, the last couple of times I've played Winota, has it gone terribly? No comment. Will this time be different because we get a new sweet card from Aetherdrift? Hopefully. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and Edison gave me a Dealer's Choice donation deck list, and I'm going to use this to try out a new card in Winota Joiner of Forces. So this is a deck that I initially just absolutely crushed with on this channel, as you can turn things like Goblin tokens from Goblin Rabblemaster into initiative creatures and take over a game in a single combat step, sometimes literally winning the game on turn 2 by dealing lethal combat damage. But the problem is that initiative as sort of a macro archetype is basically dead in Legacy. The 4-mana cards are relatively slow, and so many decks are just good at taking back the initiative now. Blue decks are playing more creatures than ever, with things like Orcish Bowmasters with Flash being particularly problematic for trying to hold the initiative. So why do we retry it now? Because we got Howlsquad Heavy from Aetherdrift, which is pretty chonky. It is a 2/3 that gives other goblins you control haste, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, you get a 1/1 red goblin token that must attack this turn if able. It also has a max speed ability, and I'm not sure if we're ever going to activate that. I believe the text of max speed is when you deal combat damage to a player, you accrue 1 speed. And so if we have max speed, which is 4 speed, we then get a Gaia's Cradle for red mana for each goblin that we control, which honestly sounds pretty sweet. The deck is sort of prison light. We want to have a high creature density because we care about that for Winota, although we do have some ways to just laser our opponent to death by throwing these large 4-mana creatures. We need a ton of mana for this deck, as we are maybe trying to play multiple 4-drops in a game. So we are at that magical 30 mana sources that you tend to see for the Stompy decks that look like this one, although this build also has Gemstone Caverns in the sideboard as well. The sideboard is very pointed, graveyard combo, most other combo decks, decks with dudes, greedy decks. Sideboard looks pretty good. I am not a very big fan of Gemstone Cavern, but this was a time where I just copy and pasted a list. I'm in a hurry. I have to go out of town for a funeral, so we're trying to get some matches done quick tonight. Or at least this afternoon, and then tonight I'm going to play a very, very grindy Lands League. But you all love that, so I can't skip out on that. Folks, should you find that you need any Magic cards, please consider checking out my sponsor, TOAMagic.com. I sold them a couple $100 worth of cards over the weekend at MagicCon Chicago, and they treated me very well, rounding up my numbers every time. You order on their website, promo code ThrabenU will save you a little bit on your order, and you always get free shipping. You can even expedite that shipping if you've got some major tournament and you're in a hurry. All right, let's see how many times we can Winota people. Okay, looking at this opening hand here, we have 3 mana. We could do something like play a Howlsquad Heavy on turn 1 and hope that that wins the game, but I think our deck is just capable of doing better than that on average. And this certainly will be better than that on average. So let's just take a second and math this out. So turn 1, Chrome Mox, maybe imprint Rabblemaster, play City of Traders, throw back Plateau, imprint 3 mana, 4 mana, Caves. Caves gets me white mana for Seasoned Dungeoneer. That's fine, assuming we don't get Force of Willed. And then it's a little problematic if we do get Force of Willed, but it seems like my opponent has F6'd here. So we're in luck. Or, I say we're in luck, unless we just die. Just dying is very possible. So, in case it's been a little while, the types for Seasoned Dungeoneer are Cleric, Rogue, Warrior, and Wizard. So Barbarian is not one of those, so I don't necessarily need to play a Seasoned Dungeoneer pre-combat. It looks like we have an Ancient Tomb Mirror, although probably a different sort. No Metalcraft yet for Spellbomb, and passing the... Sorry, no Metalcraft yet for Mox Opal purposes. We're just going to try to get my opponent dead here. We're forging, even though, the Spellbomb is coming. It's not here yet. Okay. So we're going to crash in. Caves of Chaos Adventurer does have an on-attack trigger, so we're going to just attack in and see if we hit something relevant to play with this. Chalice of the Void. I mean, I'll play it for 0. That's fine. So, 1/2, known land drop, sacrifice, Seasoned Dungeoneer. We will now trap our opponent. And we're really just putting them under the gun here. So we have seen Ancient Tomb, Mox Opal, Aether Spellbomb as the 3 cards. So my opponent has blue, my opponent has Urza's Saga. Given where the metagame is at right now, my opponent might be some sort of like stock up, Simulacrum, Synthesizer, Urza's Saga, Artifact Beatdown style deck. So I can be thinking about Fury to just remove fair creatures. I can be thinking about Magus of the Moon to stop Urza's Saga. My Chalice of the Void on 0 is a thing that I can do. It would probably be okay. If my opponent has a bunch of Baubles and Emery, the Chalice becomes much, much better. I can also be thinking about this Gemstone Caverns when I am on the draw, just as a way to accelerate out my things that matter. But this is a time where we definitely don't have perfect information. So sideboarding perfectly is tough. I think on the play, I like my chalices, and on the draw, I'm much less keen on them. I think we're going to go bam, get one of these in there, and then get some amount of this stuff in there. I can do 2 Magus, 1 Fury. It really feels like if I'm going to play any Furies, though, I should play more than one. It feels very strange to just play one of those. Fury is good against Emery, lines up poorly versus Patchwork Automaton in terms of tempo and cost. Sometimes okay versus Urza Saga tokens, it's a little sketch. Maybe we skew this like that, kind of hedging on things. And now this is just like, how willing am I to go in on turn 1 Magus of the Moon when I've identified that my opponent is an Urza Saga deck? I think I am willing to go in on that. Opponent is mulliganing aggressively here. I do not know what their counterspell situation currently looks like. I also don't know whether or not I am Chrome Moxing or Lotus Petaling on turn 1. That is currently unclear to me. The basic planes alongside Magus of the Moon is just like clutch as well. Alright, seat and pass. That's a Winota. That probably makes me want to Chrome Mox and play Fury. Sorry, Chrome Mox, put Fury under it. We go bam. We go bam. We go bam. And then next turn, I have Winota. Dismember. Sure. That probably should not have been done on the main phase. It probably doesn't matter, as I usually don't have multiple Lotus Petals to follow it up immediately. Alright. So bam. And we'll drop Winota. Notably, sometimes I will draw some sort of Goblin thing. Another one? Okay. Anyway, I will draw some sort of Goblin thing that enables my nonsense. Alright, opponent has no lands here. So now I just need to draw something reasonable to follow up. My deck is basically half mana, half bangers, so it will probably not take too long for me to top deck a threat. You know, famous last words and all, but statistically speaking, I should draw a threat in the next couple of turns. Once I'm done drawing all of my Ancient Tombs, of course. Alright, opponent has no land here. Hey, there we go. I'll play one of those. I think I'm willing to just take 2 to make a regular old land drop here. There is a Force of Will, there's a Thoughtcast. My opponent has dealt 9 points of damage to themselves. I'll get in there for those last couple eventually. Alright, there is another land drop. That's 2 mana. Alright, yeah. This is the sort of card that I was expecting from this deck. Cavern I will just hold until I draw my next threat. Notably, I am at 14 from my own Ancient Tombs here. That is another Patchwork Automaton, which is not really scary unless I just bottom out on cards. Which can happen. Like, it absolutely can. Like so. So that I never take Ancient Tomb damage next turn, I'm going to go ahead and play that out. This would be an incredibly disappointing loss if this happens. Sure. Like, if I miss on this draw step, I am just dead. There's the cycling. Okay, Fury is great. So these are Ward 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plus 2 more beyond that. We'll go Elemental here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll play Lotus Petal. I suppose I should have Lotus Petaled before this. So we will blow up the bigger one. Ward 2. I'll pay for that with both Lotus Petals here. Slightly awkwardly. Something is happening in response. Consign to memory. Sure. I'm dead to any artifact. Disappointing. Yep, I'm dead to that. That is a very disappointing loss. My deck simply did not present threats. Okay, so when I'm on the play, we get that the fuck out of the deck. My Furies are slightly worse than I thought because my opponent has Consigned to Memory. The same is true for like the Chalice and Trinisphere type things that will just get countered by that card. I might want the Chalices just for Chalice on 0 on the play. And if I do that, I go down some number of Furies and Maguses. I haven't seen the Urza Saga yet. It is certainly there. Consigned to Memory on a Fury trigger is pretty devastating. Let's get those out of there and keep 2 Maguses in the deck. This is a mediocre hand. So this is turn 2, make some goblins. Turn 3, start to throw them with Broadside. Or play... Now I can't play Seasoned Dungeoneer immediately then. I think I just have better hands than this. Holy goblins, Batman. I think we can assume that my opponent does not have Wasteland, and just keep this, pitch the City of Traders. And I play goblins forever. We will go Cavern on Goblin, pass the turn. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that stop. And we'll see what my opponent can do here. You may do your patchwork stuff. Bobble's fine. Take your redraw. So the only creature that I can get in with damage this turn is Broadside. I don't know that damage this turn matters. So this one gives other goblins I control haste. That would include the Goblin Rabblemaster that I want to play next turn. So I think I'm going to play Howlsquad Heavy here. Speed, okay. Whenever one or more opponents loses life during your turn, gain a speed. So I'm going to make a friend. I'm going to attack it into Patchwork Automaton. My opponent will obviously block. And then I'll just lose that token, no big deal. So my opponent has an Ancient Tomb. That's going to hurt their own life total. That's an affinity card. The 3/4, it's pretty big. I play Rabblemaster. My Howlsquad Heavy has to attack, which is not the best right now. I will take that hit for 4. But do I just need to nuke Memory Guardian? I might just need to nuke that 3/4 body. I really wanted Goblin Rabblemaster with haste. That might just not be in the cards, though. Uncounterable Broadside. Go to combat. Make my friend. I'll send in with everyone. Now we're going to Broadside, target Memory Guardian, throw the Howlsquad Heavy, and then I'm going to hit my opponent for 3. We do gain more speed. Now we are at speed 2, so if we get another one of these in the future, we can work towards that max speed ability. This is going to be an incredibly close game. Opponent's doing something big. That is a Kappa Cannoneer. The ward ability, obviously very good. I might just die to these next turn. My opponent chose not to attack. So what am I doing with that information? Probably just attacking with everything. And when my opponent blocks a broadside, I throw that broadside at my opponent's face and then try to throw another creature next turn for lethal. That seems like the play. Yeah. Always this, always this. My opponent would need to play 3 artifacts. Unlikely. Yeah, so let's send in for that extra point of damage in case it becomes relevant. That is not how that works. These have menace. So, do I want to do this as 3 damage instead? I can deal 5, 8, 9, 10. Yes, I want to do that. So this broadside targets you, throws Goblin at your face. Oh, that gives me speed too. Sick. Now the speed thing only happens once per turn. And then I throw this one. That's 4. That's 2. And now my opponent cannot tap these Ancient Tombs anymore. So they need to play 3 artifacts to kill me without using most of their mana sources. All right, there is a Memory Guardian. Dismember not currently live to kill Broadside. All right, my opponent hits me, and now I can just play multiple creatures even. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. No, I can't. So there's another uncounterable Rabblemaster. And then I will just throw that at my opponent's face. Opponent is salty in chat, and then concedes. Did my opponent lose for not attacking their previous turn? No, because I would have pushed more damage with the other hasty broadside. So no, the answer is no. Regardless, GG's. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and honestly, they're just the best at what they do. If you need to keep your deck lists online, this is the way to do it. They have all sorts of different viewing options. You can condense that text if you like things to be tight. You can make them visual grids. You can put them in stacks. You've got all sorts of different ways to kind of view and visualize your deck lists, and they also have some really cool functionality, like allowing you to see playtest hands and even fully playtest your decks. So check them out. Okay, my hand is probably a keep. I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to play it. We can have a double uncounterable Goblin hand. We can just shove Rabblemaster on 1 into Howlsquad Heavy on 2, or vice versa. We've got some wiggle room here. Romox Imprint, Seasoned Dungeoneer? What can we cook with Cavern of Souls on Warrior? Cavern Chromox, Lotus Petal, Rabblemaster on 1 with red mana under here. So then we have red, white, 2. Yeah, so this can be turn 1 threat, turn 2 threat. This is fine. We're going to sandbag our Cavern of Souls for a little while, though. Howlsquad Heavy goes under. Cavern of Souls on Warrior. And we're going to do this, and hopefully it just doesn't eat like Lightning Bolt or Fatal Push or whatever immediately. Nice, it does not. So we'll battle. Fantastic. Now, as we have established, this is a warrior, which does mean that it qualifies for a Seasoned Dungeoneer on attack trigger. Whoa, that was a very fast Swords to Plowshares. Sure. And then a Ponder. So some sort of blue-white X control deck list. Could be Esper. Could be a Stifle Knot deck. There's certainly options here. Caves of Chaos Adventure. That is a human barbarian. I think I just want to do the uncounterable one this turn, though. So let's go ahead and Seasoned Dungeoneer. Do the whole initiative thing. I'll grab my basic planes in case we do a Magus of the Moon effect. Swing in for 1. This is not a Goblin Warrior. This is just a Goblin. Undraw. Now opponent's in the tank, so they've got options. But what exactly are they thinking about? Like tap out to Fairy? Fairy bounce Seasoned Dungeoneer is pretty awkward when I have Cavern of Souls. Thinking about doing a 12-12. They do that, I don't really have Solitude. It is a Tamiyo. That does not have power and toughness. Are we into Forge? I believe that I am into Forge. But we are going to Forge onto the Goblin token here, so that it can still attack into Tamiyo. Human warrior, you say? Human warrior? So we continue to be able to do uncounterable plays. I might just be eating a Swords to Plowshares or something this turn. Dress down. Combat. Oh, that's a petty theft on the Goblin token. Sure. I will just send in with my Seasoned Dungeoneer. Yeah, I will put Winota into my graveyard. That's fine. I don't need another one of those right now. Opponent is at 12. Assuming no Wasteland, if I play a land, I can just have 4 mana next turn for Caves of Chaos Adventurer anyway. I think accordingly I will make the land drop here. So opponent is effectively at 7 life from trap, meaning that they are facing down lethal from my creatures. So if opponent draws 1 more card, they will flip Tamiyo. That was a shuffle off that Ponder, which is probably good for me. My opponent probably wants cards named Swords to Plowshares. No attack on Tamiyo, so very much respecting their own life total here. So we'll bring our opponent down. That is interesting. I think I just see what happens in combat and then do this afterwards. Make my land drop now. That part doesn't matter. Well, usually doesn't matter, more accurately. We will do this on Seasoned Dungeoneer. Yeah, the City of Traders doesn't matter this turn. So my opponent blocks 4, goes to 3. This just takes my opponent off of white mana. So, yeah, let's do that. This is counterable, and I have not given my opponent any other counter targets this game. Yeah, so that's not surprising. But if the Magus of the Moon gets countered, and then I just immediately Throne of the Dead 3, that's pretty good for me. Yeah, that's the sort of thing that I did not want to see. This is that, like, flash creature scenario that I was talking about. Although, honestly, I am not sure if my opponent can attack. Like, they just had to chump block with a creature, so I'm not sure that they can take the initiative here. Yeah, and they have died. We just got in under my opponent's deck. So what does Felia tell us? Some sort of dirtily Stoneblade style value. What are they blinking? Unsure based on what I have seen. Could be Stoneforge, and it's like meant to blink things like pre-war formal wear. We'll find out. Generally speaking, I don't like Magus of the Moon. Generally speaking, I don't think Chalice of the Void is going to be that effective, despite the fact that my opponent is a cantrip-based deck. They are going to have removal spell at multiple CMCs, like they are probably going to be playing Swords and Prismatic Ending, and if they're dirtling with Felia, maybe things like Solitude as well. So I don't really know that Chalice of the Void is going to lock my opponent out of enough stuff to really be worthwhile. I'm going to assume that answering their creatures / Tamiyo is good. When I'm on the draw, Gemstone Caverns is, I guess, a magic card. I could play a Magus. Magus shutting off my Cavernous Souls is kind of a big deal, though. I think we will probably leave in one Chalice of the Void. Chalice of the Void's not, like, great versus Felia, though. Is it one Trinisphere instead? Trinisphere is better to be thrown via Broadside? I could buy that. I have 3 starting mana. So that would be Ancient Tomb, Chrome Mox, Imprint, Caves, play Howlsquad Heavy, have multiple of these to follow up. It's a little awkward. I'm going to assume that between 2 draws, I either draw another 3-mana red castable card, or I draw a white source. I think one of those things is likely to be true. Well, shit. Do I just want to throw initiative creatures at my opponent until they die and, like, not make a play this turn? Not just jam Howlsquad Heavy directly into Swords? I think so. Let's do that and pass. It's a little awkward, though, because, like, the sooner I get bodies down, the less of a chance of something like Felia swooping in and taking the initiative later on. There's Urza's Saga. Sure. And a Shadow Spear. That card is very good against me. Multiple City of Traders is some shit, though. Okay. Oh, I think my opponent is F6. That's very good for me. That's great information. So put Howlsquad Heavy under City, mana floating, Caves of Chaos Adventurer. Now this guarantees my white mana. Excellent. So this is likely to be a contested initiative game. There's Tundra. So I think I'm just going left side here. If my opponent Swords to Plowshares, Caves of Chaos Adventurer, they're not making a deuter. I can just attack with Caves of Chaos Adventurer here and then play another creature to see if Caves of Chaos Adventurer gives me something reasonable to play, and it does. I don't know that I'm going to play it, but that is a very reasonable Magic the Gathering card. If I play Goblin Rabblemaster, my Winota next turn is noticeably better. I don't think this game is about Winota, though. And I don't think my opponent has a counterspell, unless they drew it for this turn. So let's just jam. So this now traps my opponent, putting them to 7. And I'll wave goodbye to Goblin Rabblemaster. My opponent has a 2/2 token. They potentially could get that token equipped with Shadow Spear. They're floating mana. Excuse me? That is interesting. Why? Why is that reasonable? I haven't seen black mana for Cat yet, and Cat kind of just sucks by Legacy standards. Trust me, I've tried. Are you doing some sort of Academy manufacturer, make multiple permanent sort of things? That's a shuffle. Surveil land. So my opponent could equip Shadow Spear Bash in for 4, but that's already kind of lethal on board on my side. I can just deal 11, assuming my Explorer is successful. Okay. Take out Caves of Chaos Adventurer. So, I will Archives, draw a card. It is a Cavern of Souls. So, Put it on human or warrior successfully. I will probably put it on warrior then. Human warrior, human warrior. We'll go white, red, and 2. This is uncounterable. Do the Throne of the Dead 3 thing. Fury seems good. Seasoned Dungeoneer seems good. We'll just Fury. Physically take that construct token out of play. This also just has hexproof, which is real good. Now, notably, with multiple Seasoned Dungeoneer triggers here, they get protection from creatures, which means stacking up multiple Seasoned Dungeoneers onto a Seasoned Dungeoneer doesn't actually do what you want it to do. My opponent can convert this into a food token. And my opponent said some unkind words in chat and immediately has been blocked. GG's. Alright, let's think this through here. So Cavern Chromox Petal is 3 mana 1 time. So I could get Howlsquad Heavy into play, but then I would need 2 mana to go to Winota or Caves of Chaos Adventure afterwards, so I don't actually like that. I could Chalice on 1 on turn 1, and then Howlsquad Heavy on 2, hoping to draw mana, and maybe sometimes I draw a land and I can follow up with a better card. I think this is barely worth keeping. Howlsquad Heavy going under. Like, am I just relying on my deck being 50% mana and trying to keep 2 reasonable threats? Because this is a Goblin Mercenary and this is a Human Warrior, so Cavern does not hit both. At least not uncounterably. Magic's hard. I think I'm going to do this. Put this on Human. It also hits Magus. And throw down a Chalice on 1. That is a Force of Will, unfortunately. If memory serves, my opponent tends to play Show and Tell type decks, and those tend to be pretty good against Chalice of the Void decks. Okay, which one of these do I do first? This one gives other goblins haste, so I think I'm going to go that route in hopes of attacking with a hasty Goblin Rabblemaster next turn. Plus, we need speed. Speed 1. Or, sorry, we start out at speed 1, so speed 2. You know, if my opponent just like Show and Tells Emrakul, I could put in a Winota, and that might win. So we're not on white for Solitude. A Chrome Mox. Ooh, it is Chrome Mox Show and Tell. Okay, I mean, well, Winota gonna Winota, right? That's what we're here for. So Winota, uncounterably. So now we are going to get 3 Winota triggers here on turn 3, and see if this just presents lethal. Fingers crossed. There's a Caves of Chaos Adventurer. Use that to get a basic land. We'll get a Winota here. We will keep the Winota that is attacking. And then a Seasoned Dungeoneer. So this is going to lead us to doing Forge. We will Forge up some random creature. I don't think it matters. This seems like lethal. Excellent. Hell of a turn 3. So we saw Omniscience for Chrome Mox, so that means that my opponent is on Show and Tell, which is bad news for us. We're not good against that. Our Magus of the Moon type cards are not good here. One of those can become a Gemstone Cavern, and I guess I could Trinisphere. It's just not great. My opponent's primary win condition costs 3 mana. Sometimes it can get my opponent because it messes with Omniscience, if my opponent puts in Omniscience. But this is currently sitting at 63. So I'm either cutting threats or I'm trimming some Chalice of the Voids because Chalice of the Void just hits the cantrip and does not stop the actual win conditions. I think on the draw, I'm not super inclined to actually keep my Chalice of the Voids. This is going to be a tough matchup, even though we won game 1. I'm not super hopeful here. My opponent's on 7 cards. I don't think this is a keep. We can Rabblemaster and then hope to Winota on turn 3. It feels like I'm dead by then. This is a faster hand, but it's awkward. So if I keep this, I need to just hit any imprintable red card and we're Gucci. But boy, is this awkward. I think I'll keep it. I am not super happy about it, but I think we need to high roll if we need to win if we're going to win anyway. Hey, there's a red card. So I will Chrome Mox. Imprint Caves. I will play a Lotus Petal so that I can play around a hypothetical Daze here. And then I will Rabblemaster. This is a very raceable card for my opponent. 19. And we're probably going to see a Surveil land here. We are. Next land drop. My best draw is probably now Cavern of Souls. Magus of the Moon type cards, not the strongest here versus my opponent's deck, which has the ability to fetch multiple basic islands. Maguses can shut off Ancient Tombs and slow my opponent down, but that's about the best we can hope those to do. Alright, opponent is chilling. Winota around Daze. Seems like the play that kills my opponent this turn. Howlsquad Heavy is like very reasonable damage as well, but I think I am doing the high upside play. Oh? Okay. Opponent is going for the called shot Disruptor Flute while I am floating mana. If they hit, they're a genius. Not a genius today. That also makes me think that they don't have Force of Will. So we attempt to Winota. Oh shit, it just worked. So same as the last game, we now get 3 Winota triggers to attempt to kill our opponent. Goblin Rabblemaster trigger will go on bottom. So there is a Seasoned Dungeoneer. I'll take the initiative. Yes, I will get white mana in case we need to Winota again. There's the Caves of Chaos Adventure. We're running hot, folks. We're running hot. So I will forge. Put some here. That's an indestructible creature. We'll Winota again. Holy fuck. I'm going to go buy a lotto ticket. I will be right back. Trap my opponent. That brings them to 12, and that is just lethal. This is that, like, turn 2 that I was talking about, that this deck is capable of. But I would like to just say that we just ran hotter than the sun. That was 2 games in a row that we hit on 3 Winota triggers in a row in a difficult matchup. GG's. Okay. This is probably too slow to keep game 1 on the play, even though it can do an uncounterable Magus of the Moon. If I do uncounterable Magus of the Moon, I actually lock myself out of my future non-Magus of the Moon cards, so that's not actually ideal. This is interesting. So 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana, 4 mana, turn 2 uncounterable Seasoned Dungeoneer seems fine. I'll keep this pitching a Spirit Guide, though. I can always put Broadside under. I don't know, maybe I want Broadside back in the deck if I shuffle later. Basic Plane, pass. Lanes, pass. Basic Island, Preordain. When you see Preordain in Legacy, there is a tendency for that to be an indicator of combo. It's not 100% true. Sometimes a deck needs more cantrips than than just the traditional Brainstorm plus Ponder set of 8 cards. But usually when I see Preordain, I start thinking of combo decks like Show and Tell. And as we have already discussed, that is not a matchup that I am excited to see. Fuck. Hate it when I'm right. Oh, they don't have it yet. Hell yeah. We're going to try to get my opponent dead as quickly as possible, although I would love... We're so fucking lucky, holy shit. Finishing that thought, although I would love to go to Lost Well, Goblin Rabblemaster, is that an above average draw? That's 1 point of damage next turn? Okay, so my opponent is at 14, and then they are at 9 after I trap them. I already have lethal on board, so Goblin Rabblemaster does not seem to be a majorly different change to the situation. So I will just take a different draw. Uncounterable cards are absolutely slapping today. Ooh. Oh, is this new text? There are exits to the southwest and southeast. That doesn't feel like how the client normally did that in the past. My muscle memory got thrown off. You gonna intuition me? Yeah. This is going to be a very, very, very close game. All right, opponent has Show and Tell. So my creatures can't be blocked. I could lose a creature to an Archon of Cruelty. Trax doesn't seem the most relevant right now. Okay, opponent is dead. We're lucky as fuck. So, what do we do before? Magus of the Moon's out, Chalice of the Void's out in some number. I think I landed on I like Trinispheres because I can throw them. Moonman out, and was that 3 chalices out? I think that was 3 chalices out. Okay. Okay, my hand looks like it is going to be a keep. I will probably immediately play a Trinisphere and then follow it up with a threat of some kind. It is looking to me like Spirit Guide is going under Chromox here. I'll want to play Lotus Petal out early as well. So yeah. Is there any world where I want this Spirit Guide? I am not really multi-spelling this game from the look of things. And following up with Goblin into Goblin seems okay to me. So we transfer. There's problems here because this does not stop just show and tell into Deuter, right? Like the show and tell is still perfectly castable. It just slows down Omniscience specifically. Ooh, it's stock up. This is a card that I think is specifically good in blue Ancient Tomb decks, which is exactly the sort of deck that my opponent is here. Now there's some thinking to do. So Caves is worth 0 damage right now, but is worth 7 damage next turn, and opens me up to top decking other initiative cards, and gives me an on-attack trigger. Howlsquad Heavy is worth 1 this turn, and then is worth a lot next turn, because I just do it into Rabblemaster. So next turn, Rabblemaster attacks as 6. Let's do this. I don't think I'm actually looking for any cards off a Caves of Chaos Adventurer attack. Like, it's not like I have play this permanent that stops show and tell. I don't have Disruptor Flutes in this sideboard. All right, we're in play. Now that I'm sitting here thinking more, maybe I'm supposed to play Caves of Chaos Adventurer so that if I draw Broadside next turn, I can deal more immediate damage. Caves hits for 7, Broadside for 2, that's a total of 9. Throw Caves for 6, that's 15. That's not changing the Ancient Tomb math innately, though. I think my opponent is lagging quite a bit here, so I'm going to end up hitting them for 1. Okay, there we go. And then passing the turn. I get my speed. 4 mana. No immediate play. I now have 6 mana, so I could, in theory, do 2 plays. This could get countered. Did not get countered. But now I'm going to make some friends. And this Goblin Rabblemaster gets absolutely massive. This is putting my opponent to 6. Oh, wow, that's just the concession? Am I 4-0? Holy shit, I'm 4-0 and I've dropped 1 game. We're playing for a trophy. I literally don't believe it. I swear Show and Tell is a bad matchup for Trinisphere decks. I promise. I know. Okay, final round here. Playing for a trophy. My hand is good. I'm going to keep it. I have to think through how I'm going to play it. I think I am going to start on the very generic Chalice of the Void on 1 and see where that takes us. And then I can either Magus or Seasoned Dungeoneer next turn. Oh. Okay, that's fine. Slightly awkwardly, I'm punished for not doing Simian Spirit Guide last turn. Assuming that I play Magus, which I think I will, because Dark Ritual is shut off. Okay. It's fine. We can turn Simian Spirit Guide into a threat. We've been there before. We'll be there again. So we're playing against Oopdal spells. It is still very possible to lose before I clock my opponent here. I would like a Chalice on 0 as my premium draw now, as stopping artifact mana is now one of the more important things. That's a double Spirit Guide and Jack-o'-lantern to get red mana. And now my opponent can just sacrifice this and do the thing through 2 lock pieces. That Jack-o'-lantern is rather unfortunate for us. Just in case you aren't familiar with that, my opponent cast that so that they could filter from graveyard. I figured we'd have a little bit more time. Double Spirit Guide. Real good, though. Yeah, dead. So now I've got to win 2 games. Against a very, very fast deck. Magus, reasonable. The name of the game here is kind of don't die. Kill them with whatever. Like, I don't need Winota here. I just need standalone threats. I'm probably into the stuff that costs less mana. And I think I'm just transitioning fully into a mono red deck for these games. 62. Let's sort this. Broadside gets a little worse without more expensive things to throw. I'll go down 2 of those to round out my deck. This is unexciting. It's a Leyline of the Void hand, but it's a Leyline of the Void hand that doesn't play a threat until turn 3 in all likelihood. I'm still going to keep it. I think Leyline of the Void is that important. It's very difficult for me to keep a hand that does not have Leyline of the Void. And I'm going to go ahead and just Chalice on 0 for the fast mana here. And this is why I'm saying, like, I don't think we're playing a threat until turn 3. I am shutting off my own Chrome Mox to decrease my opponent's speed. There is a land. Dark Ritual. That is a Charbelcher immediately. That's not great. So, we'll do what we can. I will now put this on 1 to stop another Dark Ritual from happening. And now my opponent just needs to make 2 land drops to kill me. There's a countered Cabal Therapy. Gavin can go on Warrior, I guess. So we're going to get in for 1. 16. That is an Unmask. I don't have any valid cards, so that's fine. I don't think I have a reason to play the land. Send in. This is worth 6. Opponent's at 10. After the next hit, it's very hard for these lands to come into play untapped. There's another Leyline of the Void. That's not doing me any good. So there's Goblin. There's attack. This is 8. So now a land can't come into play untapped. And this is just fully, does my opponent draw a Spirit Guide? That's just what this game is now. Hey, got lucky. Now when I'm on the draw, I can play a Gemstone Cavern. Not the most exciting card. It might be what we're working with here. I want to lower my curve. Do something like this. Just make almost everything cost 3. Probably okay. I lose out on my ability to just, like, hyper goldfish my opponent by doing something like this. I mean, I think I'm going to keep it. It doesn't feel great. I think I keep it and just put 1 Leyline into play, though. That way I can put the other under a Chrome Mox. 17, Dark Ritual, Douthie. Sure. Thoughtseize. Yep. I think my Chrome Mox is actually very easily my best card here. Opponent agrees. So I will just be passing the turn now. My creatures will pretty easily beat Douthie Voidwalker, but this is a can I cast them situation. So I'm going to lose a broadside to that. My opponent will attack for 3. I can play a Chalice on 1, I guess. It stops future Dark Rituals. And putting that into play means that I can throw with broadside to kill a Douthie. There are some things in exile here. Lose a broadside. Magus is not outclocking Douthie. And a tapped land. I love drawing Leyline in the Oops matchup, but 3's a bit much. We'll see if I just get bodied here. I'm passing the turn again. I am now getting to the point where mathematically I might not outclock my opponent. Good God. My opponent thinking about casting Howlsquad Heavy? Oh, yeah. Okay. Unexpected. Not saying wrong, just unexpected. The shadow is very valuable to me. And, like, this stuff is blockable. So now I will put that initial Leyline that I kept in my hand into play so that I can cast this. I'm going to be taking 3 damage a turn from this still. But hopefully I just top deck another creature, and then this becomes less of a problem. Another land. Did not top deck another creature, and I am not in a situation, I guess I should not yield through this turn, where I can attack back. I'll put a Lotus Petal into place just so my opponent does not take it. So another Goblin. I will take 3 more damage. I am set up to top deck a defensive card and be fine, but I have boarded out a decent amount of creatures. That's fine. All right, there's a Spirit Guide. And this is why I was surprised that they did go and take the other stuff. I see. Is about the mana in the future. So I will just die to that on my turn. I don't think I can 13 my opponent through a blocker. That is unfortunate. But like, we played a turn 8 game versus Oops. That's honestly pretty good. And I don't feel bad about this league result at all. And honestly, I feel like we ran hot today. All right, so that was a 4-1 with Winota. Overall thoughts on the deck list? Fine, but I don't think any better than fine, despite the fact that we were playing for a trophy, and with things going slightly differently, we might have ended up further ahead. Howlsquad Heavy was okay. The max speed thing was not hyper relevant for me. It was relevant for my opponent in the final round, funnily enough. Although, did they just have their 4th land drop that turn anyway? So I'm not actually sure that it was relevant for them. I think they had an untapped land when that was all said and done there. I'd have to go back and double check. Giving other goblins haste is cool with Rabblemaster. I think if you play Howlsquad Heavy and you also have Legion Warboss, you can make some crazy aggressive starts. I don't know if that is the same deck as Winota, because like when you're playing Winota, you do need a decent number of humans. I don't know that it can just be these 8 as the only things that you have to hit with Winota. I think the math gets a little sketchy there. I don't remember what the exact math was. I haven't run the numbers in a little while. So like the 2 main deck Magus of the Moons and the 2 sideboard Magus of the Moons are very much meant to round out those numbers and make all of those work. But Howlsquad Heavy is definitely a legacy playable card. It falls into this same category of other flex slots that you might play in decks that look like this one. 3 toughness is sometimes going to be relevant depending on what removal spells are floating around in the metagame. You know, you have something that deals exactly 2 damage, your Tar Fires to just pick a random one. Maybe, this might get a nod over one of the other flex slot options. I wonder how good this card is in an actual Goblins deck. Goblins is pretty close to dead as an archetype in Legacy, though. Generally speaking, Aether decks are not really good in Legacy anymore. And the slow, grindy attrition game that Goblins play does not line up when 50% of the format is combo. But yeah, I am glad we played this deck. Gemstone Caverns, good work this league for all the things you did that were relevant. And folks, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. Should you need some magic cards, you know where to go. Promo code ThrabenU. All right, see ya.